Hey everyone, welcome to my channel. I'm again here, and today we are going to discuss literary theory or criticism, and we are going to deal with the topic myth, fiction, and displacement, which was written by Northrop Frye. In a way, Northrop Frye is trying to understand or making a sense that how the myth and fiction both are connected with each other in this essay. Let us take a look at introduction. Everything starts with myth, later on becomes reality by converting it into a successful fiction. In this essay, Frye talks about concept of myth, fiction and displacement, also shows the importance of literary criticism. He told that it is critic duty to look at the work of literature as complete pattern of word. If we look at the myth word, then myth is a concept which runs through many areas of contemporary thoughts like anthropology, psychology, comparative religion, sociology, and several others. So it is in a way an integral element of literature, and that is why many of writers are too much connected with the myth and they are interested in taking a myth as their base or as the plot for their writing any kind of a work of art. There is a kind of thing that how fiction is written. First, we take that there are two broad division of literary works which may be called the fictional and thematic. It can be divided in two parts. First is a fictional, and in fictional we can add internal characters, novels, plays, narrative poetry, folk tales, and many more things in which there are so many characters. So apart from reader and writer, there are so many characters. But in thematic, there are only a two person, author and reader, in which we can add lyrics, essay, didactic poetry, and oratory. If we look at this continuity of a work, then continuity of a work exists on a different rhythmic levels. Every word, image, sound is making contribution to total movement. Direct experience is a series of layer grouping events and scenes that make story. For example, if we are reading any story or any novel or any kind of literary work, then whole work with their words, with emotions, with themes make a proper kind of impact on reader's mind. So if we are reading any words, any single words, then we can't get the idea of that novel. But as soon as we complete the whole book or whole work, then we come to know that okay, this is this story. So this kind of continuity of work is needed while we are reading any kind of a work of art. For example, Hamlet. So Hamlet, in this story, we are reading from act 1 to all this act, and then we come to know that this is the story. So it is not that we are reading first act and we come to know okay, this is the story. For that we have to read whole story. According to Aristotle, plot is the life and soul of tragedy. That's what he stated. So mythos or plot, what is mythos or plot? So it is a kind of a sequence of gross events which took place in novel or any kind of a work, and there are characters in this mythos or in this plot. Like if we are taking example of Hamlet, then there are Hamlet and then his mother and other the king, his uncle. All these characters are including in the novel or in any kind of a drama. So what the characters are doing, that are they are hold and guiding our attention, that okay, this is the story, that is how everything is happening in the story. So this is how the plot is constructed, and it is whole called as a fiction. Sense of continuity is most difficult thing to recapture. This is a center of attention and tends to become a discontinuous, because as soon as we complete the first act, then we forget that first act and we move forward to next chapter. So in the next chapter we are coming up with a new imagination. So we there is a hard to become, there is hard to stay continue in the work. There are vivid characterizations, speech, image, scenes, and background. and it disappearance of continuity. So as soon as all these things, there are so many characters, so many speeds, dialogues and image, and that is why we are getting confused and we are not remember all the things, but we are only understand the whole over idea. Then there is a concept of theme. As I talked earlier that the attention is hard to stable, make it stable to make attention. So what is then we uh, concentrate on concept of theme, that apart from these words and sentences and images which emerge while reading, we are taking becoming conscious about the theme. So person's attention shift from the plot to its theme, and one become more conscious of the theme. The incidents detach from one another and regrouped in a new way. For example, if we are reading any novel, so we are going through the chapters, so many chapters there are, if there are so many chapters, then we are reading it. So as soon as we moving forward to second chapter, we forgot first chapter or we have only idea of that, then we are moving to third chapter, then we forgot the second chapter, we have only idea. So it is become discontinued, and then at the end when we complete reading of that work of art, we got whole idea, so it's regrouped in a new way. Like if we are reading any kind of work, like work of Animal Farm by George Orwell, then in the last, after reading the novel, you can come to know that okay, this is the story after reading all the chapters. So this is when then we focus on the concept of theme. Then Northrop Frye divided subject themes in so many ideas. So first is allegorical value, the thought of reflection. So allegorical value is what? That for example in Hamlet there is a play, and this play is kind of a allegory, and the characters are personification of someone or becoming someone if we are using any kind of allegory. In Animal Farm there are personification, that they are using characters of animals but they are describing any other persons. So this is allegorical value of connected with theme. Then second is subject of theme. It is a summarized statement. For example, in Hamlet, in a way, this story is a story of a man who could not make up his mind. While we are complete reading Hamlet, then we come to know this statement is true. Forgetting all this story, we just come to know this about this fact that this is the story of man who could not make up his mind. It is less abstract than subject and more direct than allegorical translation. And if we examine unit by clearing its shape, like what is it? It is tragedy, it is satire, it is comedy, what kind of form of literature it is, it become visible, the shape of that is become visible, and it is only concerned with unifying factor, that how unifyingly it give impact on the readers. Then there is incident, manifestation of a unity. So plot is kind, we can divide it into two, that there is archetypes. So Northrop Frye is famous for his archetypes words. What is archetypes? Words with a sense of pattern and same story told in different way. For example, in Partner's Tale, Chaucer wrote in Canterbury Tales, or in his work, the Partner's Tale is used as an element for whom who take this work as the reference, Rudyard Kipling. In India, he wrote book, a jungle book, with different setting, details, and methods, but he took reference of that Partner's Tale. So this kind of manifestation of unity can be possible. So we are using other stories as our references or as a guide for us, and then we are writing story, but plot is same, but there is a difference of setting, words, characters, but plot is same. So there is, this is the concept of theme. Then we take a look at shape. At a certain point near the end, suspense is resolved and the unifying shape of the whole design become visible. It is term for recognition or rendering. In the comedy, the Northrop Frye gave a two types of shape. First is comedy shape and then tragedy shape. So comedy shape is a kind of a U shape in which first what happened, that action seeking into deep, So action is rising and then falling down into the deep and turning upwards into happy ending. If we look at the any tragedy, any comedy work, then we come to know that there are certain type of this thing is happening that for his own. If we can take an example of Uncle Poacher hangs a picture, so it is a kind of a comedy. So action diving in deep, that he is trying to hang in picture but he is not able to hang the picture, so it is diving into the deep. And at the end when he try hang the picture, then it is turning upwards into the happy ending, that he can hang the picture. Then in the tragedy, so tragedy is, there is a kind of three things happens. The first is action rising in crisis to peripety, then plugging downwards to catastrophe and results of previous act. So whatever, there is one man tragedy, revenge tragedy, any kind of tragedy was there, but the character development has happened, and due to their ability to make their misfortune, so the characters are deep down in become their kind of reason for their own fall. And then in the result what happened, that the person or hero dies or something bad thing happen in the story. So that is v shape in the tragedy. Through the series of recognition, it bring end to the line with beginning. So in the, no matter it is comedy or tragedy, at the end the beginning and end come to the similarity, one straight line. So unity of theme is a kind of, there is a emblematic object. Now what is the meaning of emblem? The emblem, it point there where hero may discover who is his parents, he may go through the ordeal, or villain may be unmasked. In essay, Northrop gave an example of the chalk circle, but we can take around any kind of a thing that we can take any Bollywood films example too for understanding the emblem, that the hero may discover who he is. In Bahubali 2, we can take example of that. Then this Mahendra Bahubali come to know that he is a son of Amarendra Bahubali. So this can be known as emblem. And this emblematic object, point of identification where hidden truth emerge into view. So in that picture we can know that the the Mahendra Bahubali was known that he is the son of this dynasty, and he is the one who is king. So this is can reflecting in emblematic object. Then take a look at imagination. So imagination is a kind of thing which is necessary when you are writing any fictional form of art. So imagination, according to Renaissance, that works mainly by association and outside the provenance of judgment. Imagination is a power that produces art. The main source of inhibitions is need to produce a plausible story, to come to term things as they are. So whatever the writer, what they are doing, that whatever the things in their mind, they are reflecting in their work. What by which they are using imagination. Their imagination helps them to write the certain kind of a story. Particularly, the storyteller, what he want to write, or what his convenience to make this story. Like characters are imaginative projection, hero become puric hero, and villain become villainous. So whatever in the mind of the writer, he can write in this uh, fictional writing by using of imagination. Then what is folktale, that widely described in this essay, that what is folktales. So folktales is folktale gave a dialogue, imaginary, abstract story patterns and characters like man, ghost, or animals. It is uncomplicated and easy to remember. There is not a barrier of language, and there is an abstract story pattern, and characters can do what author can think. So it is a story that author makes. So this is kind of a thing that what can author decided in his mind, they are writing in the fictional story. And there is no language barriers, because there are people are using any kind of language, any kind of words which was belonging from their culture. Then there is interchange motive. Interchange motive connected with the culture and the myth. So for readers, it is easy to understand. And taking from myth, of course, writers are uh, become inspiration. It inspire writer to write a fictional story. What myth inspire writer? So there is no need of logical motivation, that whatever writers thought in his mind, that okay, horse is flying in the air, so he can do it, so he can write it, and readers can understand it and digest it. So that is folktale. Then distortion. What is distortion? Writer use folktale and produces a distortion of realism in structure. In some work, characters are exist for sake of the action. Then there were no point of reread it. So distortion is a kind of thing. Why writer are too much interested in writing distortion? So because the folk tales are already written, they have ideas. They have just putting only some new ideas while writing the work of art. So it is easier for them. Plot is available, characters are available, and they have to just return it. So it is kind of easier thing for them to write any work of art, so they are choosing distortion. So it is easy for them. Then in some work, characters are only exist for sake of action. That if we are looking at detective novel or any kind of a popular literature which is famous right now, for example, in the essay they are giving a example of the body snatcher. But in reality, we can take any detective novel. Then at the end we find that okay, this is the criminal, this is the person who murder any person. So then we don't have any kind of there is no need of reread that thing. That if we are reading any novel which is detective, then we come to know okay, for example, we are taking Edgar Allan Poe's the Black Cat. Then we come to know that who murdered his wife, the writer, the narrator himself. So when we come to know that narrator is a killer, then there is no need of reread it again. So this kind of a detective novel or popular literature is connected with distortion. Continuous recognition, fidelity to experience and knowledge of whole structure. So what happened, that there is a recognition that okay, we are experiencing that in a detective novel. If we are reading the Black Cat, then we okay come to know okay, this is happening, narrator feels that, narrator hangs his cat, narrator trying to murder his wife and murdered her. So all this comes with experience and knowledge of whole structure. And we in our mind there is a clarity that okay, this thing is happening, and slowly and steadily we come to know okay, this is the thing, and that is why the narrator murdered his wife. So knowledge of whole structure we got at the end. Now what is myth? So myth is form of verbal art, belong to world of art. Myth belonging from serious category. Myth believed to have really happened. It has significance in explaining feature of life as rituals. So people are believing that myth can really happen, and they are too much connected with myth. It shows an tendency to stick together and build a bigger structure, and is a historical form of tradition. It is also a historical form of tradition, that all kind of a culture or all kind of a region have their own kind of a myth. For example, we have Ramayana and Mahabharata. So it is our myth, and we know that there are so many writing in fictional writing which was connected with this myth or taking ideas from this our myth. Then myth makes systematic attempt to see the nature in human shape, and in myth humans and natural content are god. So there we are making a tree god, sun god, we are telling everyone river god, like a Ganga Mata. So we are using therefore kind of a god, putting god behind them or giving them that much of a value in myth. And also there are characters, humans are also connected with god. Like we are giving a name every rishi. If we are looking at our rishis which was in our ancient time, then we also see them as a god. And God represent as a humanized form. For example, Krishna, Ram. So in a way, we are devotee to them, but in myths, they are coming as a character of a human. They are facing all type of ordeals, all type of problems, and coming out from that. So that is God represent as a humanized form. With it, it also show man's origin, destiny, limit of power, extension of hopes and desires, similarities in every culture. So there is man's origin. If we are looking at Ramayana, then there is how Bhagirath bring Ganga at the earth. Then there is a destiny, so many destiny where there limitation of power are also there, that God, though they are God, they are not able to face such a kind of a cruel person or enemies. Extension of hopes, good things, they are believing in good things, that okay, these characters are coming up and they are coming on the earth for making all the things good. Briefs and tradition and cosmological speculation also there. They are connected with astrology, and so many things are connected in myth. And the tradition, the value, virtues also giving into the myth. And it is universal, of course, so it can, anyone can understand it. Myth told and retold, modified in patterns, and the poetic life of story. When it lose all the connection, then become classical myth. Myth provides man outline which later occupies by literature. There are two principles. First is analogy. So what is analogy? Analogy is a kind of a thing in which we are showing the parallel between human life and natural phenomena. For example, cycle of sun or cycle of season connected with cycle of life. Rising moment like a spring connected with marriage, birth of something, like for example, Ram was born in the afternoon, so it is rising moment and connected with birth. Then falling moment like a dawn, and it is connected with death and sacrifice. So if we look at the mainly the idea that murdered or the sacrifice or the ordeal was happening in the evening or in the dawn time. So it is parallel between human life and natural phenomena. The second principle is identity, conceives of God, which I earlier discussed, that sun god, tree god. We are giving everyone as a tag of a god and seeing them as a god, so we can just become a devotee of them. So uses of simile and metaphor is also there. Now is the most important part, that relationship between myth and literature. So how myth and literature both are connected with each other, and why writer are too much interested, and how myths some principle came to fictional writing by the literature. So let us take a look. Literature is more flexible and fill up with universal. All cultures' mythology merges with literature. There would be many work derived directly from myth. For example, Endymion. Endymion is a kind of a myth. And another time, poem Endymion, which was written by Drayton and Keats. They also took directly Endymion as their fictional writing for their writing. Then, by studying genre and convention, we study their relationship. Mythology defines beliefs, tradition, cosmological speculation, and that is why poet deeply connected with outline of the myth. The structural principle of mythology uses in literature, and their principles become principle of literature. So how these principles take place, let us take a look. Principle of rising moment and falling moment reappear as a structural principle of comedy and tragedy in literature. So how that rising moment connected with comedy and falling moment connected with tragedy. Second thing, the dialectic in myth, heaven and hell reappear in literature as idealized world of pastoral romance and absurd, the suffering of frustrated world of irony and satire. So the hell is connected with the absurd, suffering and frustrated world of irony and satire, and heaven is connected with romance and pastoral. Then, from the poetry of myth, it reappears in figure of speech as a simile and metaphor. Then, the relation between myth and literature is established by studying the genre and convention of life, and there is from uh, literature is like misleading analogies and mistaken identities, and in the present time there is a wide area the scholars are studying and dealing with the kind of work of art in which they are dealing with misleading analogies and mistaken identities. Then at the last, what is displacement? Displacement means technique a writer used to make his story credible, logically motivated, or normally acceptable, lifelike. Fidelity and feature of literature can affect only content, and literary shape came from tradition and myth. Reader of myth and fiction will get the true message of the story. So idea of displacement is connected with the thing that readers must know that what there is a relationship of myth and fiction, and they get what is the true message which was given by the writer from the myth or the fiction. So this is from Myth, Fiction and Displacement by Northrop. Thank you so much.